everybody, my name is Eric Hopkins and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, please click that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. So I'm going to be doing a review for SmackDown for July 9, 2021 here. I've kind of decided maybe a little bit that me and the guys are going to be probably doing reviews for NXT and AEW every week, obviously for the NXT shows and Dynamite. But for Raw and SmackDown, until they get improved, I still kind of like to cover them. So if I can, and if I'm available to do so, I'll probably do Raw and SmackDown by myself. But if the other guys want to join me, they're more welcome to do so. But if not, for now, I think it'll just be me. Now, there are going to be some Fridays, especially, I'm not going to be able to do SmackDown or AEW Rampage not the morning after, just because sometimes I travel out of town to visit family. So for the time being, you may see the SmackDown and Rampage reviews the following week as well. So we've been kind of doing this thing lately where Raw and SmackDown, since they haven't been very good quality, we've been lumping them into the NXT reviews, and we thought about doing Rampage the same on AEW Dynamite reviews. But every now and then you may see me do SmackDown and Raw individually by myself, so that's what I'm doing here tonight. So with that being said, let's get into the show tonight. For July 9th, 2021, SmackDown opened up with a video package that recapped Edge returning 2 weeks ago and attacking Roman Reigns. It also included Jimmy Uso calling out Edge last week. Jimmy Uso tried to enter Roman Reigns' locker room, but Paul Heyman stopped him. Heyman noted Reigns is getting ready to go to the ring, but he'll deal with Uso later. Heyman promised him that Reigns is going to give him the attention he deserves. Uso walked off, and Heyman gave him an evil grin. So after the opening video, Reigns was standing behind the curtain. Heyman approached and told him it's time. They headed towards the ring. It's interesting to note here, obviously this week we had some breaking news about Jimmy Uso got involved in a DUI and apparently blew a blood alcohol level like more than twice the legal limit. So it's not good. I think he definitely needs to find some help, and because this is not his first instance of this ever happening, and WWE would be good to step in here. I hope they will, but it seems like they're really not going to be punishing him much when it comes to the on-air storylines, because obviously after tonight, it looks like everything is, on as planned when it comes for SummerSlam and when it comes to the tag team titles, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But yeah, they definitely made mention of this in the opening segment here, which we'll get into also. So Michael Cole and Pat McAfee noted it's the final SmackDown from the Thunderdome. Thank goodness. I'm tired of looking at this thing. Don't get me wrong. It was good for a while. And the Thunderdome is obviously, better than having no crowd at all. Absolutely. So WWE did the best that they could, I think, under the circumstances. However, there were other, I know AEW did some things where they had wrestlers and stuff on the outside of the ring, and even NXT did the same thing, and it made for better shows than just having a bunch of fans up on the video board. But I think they were trying to go for this NBA-type vibe with these video screens, and to be honest, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I'll be glad to see it go and for live fans to come back next week. They pushed that Reigns and Edge at Money in the Bank is their first singles match that they've had together, so that is true. So that'll be interesting to see. They opened up they piped in the fake boos and loud Roman chants for Roman Reigns as he's in the ring here. Roman noted there's a lot of stuff he did not like about last week. He's furious that Edge claimed he's scared of him. Reigns mentioned he had a few seconds of fear when Edge had him in the crossface with the bar. Reigns said to ask any fighter and mention Brock Lesnar. So once again, WWE is, keeping Brock Lesnar on everybody's mind. Lots of, news and rumors going around about whether or not he's going to be returning at SummerSlam to possibly face Bobby Lashley. We're just going to have to wait and see, but they are definitely keeping him in the back of your minds for sure. Reigns said he used the few seconds of fear to beat Edge and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. Reigns then turned his attention to Jimmy Uso. Uso made his way to the ring. Uso pointed out that he called out Edge for him, but he was on vacation. Reigns noted he didn't ask Uso to call out Edge. Reigns wasn't there last week because he was busy talking to Jay. Jay's music then hit, which is the same music as Jimmy's basically, and he made his way to the ring. He said he'd return for all three of them. Jay told Reigns that his right-hand man is back, but he also came back for Jimmy. He's here for Jimmy during these dark times. That was the reference to the DUI, I believe, there. Jay's ready to be tag team champions again. Reigns said that that's all he's ever wanted. He wants the Usos to be tag champions and to be the Universal Champion for as long as he wants. Reigns pointed out they just have to do things his way, which is together. Reigns opened his arms and embraced the Usos. They hugged, and Roman Reigns looked into the camera. This was actually a really good segment. We've said for weeks on the podcast that the Roman Reigns, Jimmy, and Jey Uso stuff is the best thing that SmackDown has going for it, and it's definitely not any different here because this was absolutely well executed. I thought the hug at the end was absolutely perfect. It definitely, Roman has finally got his boys on the same page, so to speak. So it's interesting to see how this entire storyline has played out, and it's interesting that they're going to continue it with the Usos when after everything that's gone down with Jimmy. I kind of halfway expected them to maybe kind of drop the Uso portion of this storyline. Because, to be honest, Roman Reigns doesn't necessarily need them. But at the same time, I get it. The whole idea of the family is too big of a storyline to drop, and it's actually working for this brand. So I understand WWE doing it. I just hope that for Jimmy's sake, he's going to be okay and he gets the help that he deserves because we don't want to see him get hurt himself or hurt anybody else. Absolutely. His safety and well-being is the most important thing here. In the back, we had Kayla Braxton. She interviewed Baron Corbin. He mentioned his recent financial problems. He's promised to win the Money in the Bank ladder match to get back on track. I personally don't see that happening, but never say never. Then we had a Money in the Bank qualifier match. Shinsuke Nakamura defeated Baron Corbin in about 11 minutes here. The match went a little too long for my taste, but at the same time, I've made criticisms about how I feel like the matches on Monday Night Raw are too short. So in that regard, I'm glad to see a longer match here. And I think that is the proper way to do it, longer matches. My issue with this match is the fact that we've seen it multiple times over and over and over and over again, and Baron Corbin's pretty much been getting his butt handed to him, so there's really no sense in continuing to do this. It's just driving home the point that Baron Corbin is in a bad place right now because he's basically had his pride taken from him, he's had his crown taken from him, he's had his money taken from him, he's had everything taken from him, and they're really hitting the sympathy card with this. They're really going all in on trying to make you feel sorry for Baron Corbin. But for me, it's like Baron Corbin has been a heel for so long and he's been a total prick, to say, for lack of a better term, that to me, it's like, I don't care about Baron Corbin. In a way, he's getting what's coming to him as a heel. And, and he's basically crying about all this stuff. And I understand they're probably going to be turning him babyface because I've heard they've copyrighted the name Happy Corbin. So if that's the case, that's probably where they're going to be going with this. But I just don't know if, constantly beating him down and, making fun of him and then, making him, of course, since the fact that he's been a heel this whole time, you're asking fans to automatically care for him after all this time, and you got to build to that, which I'm sure that's what they're trying to do here. I just don't know if it's the best method to actually get that done. But anyway, Nakamura went for a Kinshasa, but Corbin countered with a clothesline. The finish came when Nakamura hit a series of knees and a Kinshasa for the win. So, Kinsuke Nakamura, whatever you want to call him, he qualifies for the Money in the Bank ladder match here. And after the match, Pat McAfee and Big E rocked out to Nakamura's music, which is another thing. Big E come out before this match and went to ringside and got this couch and even had some foot massagers for him and Pat McAfee as they both did that at ringside. And it was funny to see Pat McAfee stand up in the foot massager and sit there and rock out to Nakamura's music as he came out to the ring. Rick Boogs, though, I can't seem to really get into him. Don't get me wrong. I understand why WWE likes him, but me personally, it just feels like all he's out there to do is play the guitar, act crazy, and just. He's a compliment to Nakamura's character, but even Nakamura has taken a steep decline in my opinion since his days in NXT. So I just had a hard time getting into that act. But I thought the Big E stuff was funny. But I think if it's up to me and Money in the Bank, I would think that Big E or Seth Rollins, I'm guessing Drew McIntyre is going to win the Money in the Bank, but considering I always feel like Drew McIntyre, it would make sense since he can't actually challenge Bobby Lashley for the title as long as Bobby holds the belt. So I think that would be an interesting dynamic if they were to go that route, but I just don't know if that's the route they're going to take. But if they don't, I think Big E or Seth Rollins is probably the best options out of everybody in that match. Everybody else just seems to be in there because they are good at doing ladder matches, and that's probably what they're going to be doing with those. But In the back after this, we had Jimmy apologize to Jay for everything he said before. Jay accepted the apology because they're family, so he's pulling his best Vin Diesel out here. Jay wondered if they should try to take out Edge before Reigns does. So a little bit of a tease to what's to come. Then we had a non-title match. Before the match, Tamina and Natalya, the women's tag team champions, noted that they were told they would be facing a mystery team. They then demanded that the mystery team come out to the ring, and that is when we get the NXT call-ups of Shotzi and Nox from NXT. They make their debuts on SmackDown here. Of course, a lot of talk throughout the day about Bayley's injury. I believe it came out that it's actually an ACL or some sort of knee injury where she's going to be out for 9 months because she hurt herself training for the Bianca Belair women's title match at Money in the Bank, which we'll get into that a little bit more here in a little bit. But I assumed that some of these call-ups were going to be for that match, but that ended up actually being the case. But Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Nox, they removed their name, or at least part of their name, so now they're known as Shotzi and Nox on the main roster. I hate it when WWE main roster does this. Why can't you call them Shotzi Blackheart? Why can't you call her Tegan Nox? Why must you change everything the moment you bring them up to the main roster? It just screams changing it for no reason. Not only that, Tegan Nox just came back on NXT and was setting up a feud with Candice LeRae, who supposedly took her out, even though a lot of people are talking about how it was Dakota Kai who did that instead. But that feud just got started last week on this last Tuesday on NXT. So why are you calling her up right now? I understand you need, faces on the main roster because your women's division is very, thin. Obviously the Bayley injury, exposed that even more so than it was already out there. But I just don't understand the move at this time, unless you're going to have Tegan Nox pull double duty, which, I highly doubt that's the case because the main roster and Vince and Bruce Pritchard and all those guys in the back, they don't care about what NXT is doing. It's if they need them, all right, it's ours now, so you're going to have to drop it in NXT. So I got a feeling the Tegan Nox, Candice LeRae storyline is probably dropped, unfortunately, and I hate to see that because I was kind of looking forward to seeing where that was going to go. Also, with Shotzi Blackheart, she had been teasing, I believe, on social media that her and Ember Moon were going to go after the NXT Tag Team Championships again. Obviously, that looks like that's, I'll put on the the back burner at this point. That's not going to be happening either. So it makes me wonder if Ember Moon is going to be going on a bit more of a singles run in NXT. But we'll see what they do. Maybe maybe these two girls are going to be pulling double duty for a while. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just not only that they did this non-title women's tag team championship tag team against the tag team champions here with Natalya and Tamina. So and then of course I understand. Shotzi and Nox coming up to the main roster, you definitely don't want to beat them on their debut. Absolutely. You got to have them go over and win. However, why do you book them in a match that is for what WWE main roster always does and have them beat the champions? Straight up, clean as a sheet in the middle of the ring. Natalya takes a pinfall here when Shotzi hit her off the top rope with the ball pit for the win. So, I mean, to me, it's less like, why are you doing that? I mean, to me, anytime you pin the champions, now, again, you can do it occasionally. I've said this on a lot of the other wrestling shows, like NXT and AEW. You can do pinning the champion every now and then, but the thing is, WWE does it all the time. It's like it's the only way they know how to set up a title match is by pinning the champions to earn the title match. Why not build up some wins and then you could challenge, say, hey, we've been winning all these matches and now you've not beaten us yet, and that's how you do it. That way you keep the championship strong and you keep the title holder strong and the contender strong. In this case, Tamina and Natalya just get beat and really, what has Shotzi and Nox done to earn a title shot other than to beat the champions? Nothing. They haven't been on the roster for more than a night, and all of a sudden they're in the title match. So to me, it's just kind of like, this is not the proper way to book pro wrestling, in my opinion. Otherwise, the match was fine. Nothing wrong with that. I thought they did a good job. But to me, it was just kind of like, it was just, typical WWE main roster stuff that I can't get into. But that's me personally. If you enjoyed this, more power to you. Absolutely. In the back, we had Megan Morant interviewing Edge. He promised to call out Roman Reigns later tonight. He wondered if Reigns had the guts to challenge or answer his challenge without the Usos. So something that he's not done a lot lately. So good point by Edge here, which is something I've said about Roman Reigns and the Usos, that it's kind of a thing that is my problem with the Young Bucks on AEW right now, and Kenny Omega a little bit, and Cody Rhodes to some degree at times, that, you know, with Roman and the Usos, Roman always needs outside interference to help or get the cheap victory and things like that. At some point, Roman Reigns has got to do it on his own. Now, he did do it on his own earlier this year. I believe it was after WrestleMania. I think he beat Daniel Bryan on his own. But at WrestleMania, he did have a little help even in that match. But you got to come out there and prove it. I mean, if you're saying you're as good as you are, you've got to prove it, whether you're a heel or not. I understand that's a heel tactic, but again, you do it all the time with the interferences, the disqualifications, the run-ins, the distractions, all this stuff. You can do. Again, those are things you can do, but you need to do them sparingly and rarely in order to have the full effect of doing those things. If you do them all the time, it means nothing, and crowds just start to go, okay, so none of this means anything. And, you know, so hopefully, you know, and later on, Roman tries to come out on his own here, but we'll see what happens with that as we get to it. After that, we had Sonya Deville. She come out and announced that Bayley suffered the injury during training today, as I mentioned earlier. She'll be out for 9 months. Earlier today, Bayley discussed her injury and not being able to take on Bianca Belair at Money in the Bank. She was wearing a huge knee brace and blamed the fans for her injury. So it's nice to see that they're at least keeping Bayley on TV, or at least for this segment here. I know a lot of people would like to see her maybe join Michael Cole and Pat McAfee on commentary until she heals up, because she's already got this long-standing feud with Michael Cole to begin with. So it could be very entertaining television if they do that. I hope they kind of do that route, because obviously if you can have The Miz come out on a wheelchair on Raw, why can't you have Bayley on SmackDown at the commentator booth? I don't see why you can't do that personally. And obviously we saw Bayley on Twitter was posting after the show about Cesaro and stuff. So they're keeping her in the light a little bit here. So let's hope that they'll keep her on television moving forward. Deville wished Bayley luck and hopes she recovers soon. She noted that Bayley is out of the title match at the pay-per-view, though. Deville announced that Bianca Belair would no longer defend the title that night at Money in the Bank, though. Instead, she defends the title next Friday on SmackDown, the first show back with live crowd. And Deville announced Belair's opponent, and that was Carmella. So right here is one of my biggest issues. It just shows that the SmackDown brand and the Raw brand, for that matter, I feel like the best way to handle this is merge the divisions when it comes to the tag team division and the women's division. Because to be honest, there's not enough depth there on the main roster for either division to have a brand split. And if you want to keep the rest of the brands separated, fine. But the tag team and the women's division need to be brought back together, in my opinion, and eliminate one of the belts. There's no sense in having 2 tag team titles and 2 women's belts. But in this case, with Bayley going out, it just highlights the fact that the women's division is thin. When you've got only 6 women, which to me is not really a division at all. It's 6 women, and especially when you've got a multi-women match coming up at Money in the Bank for the briefcase. And you've already got most of those women on the SmackDown side in that match. You had to pull Carmella out here to put her in the replacement spot for Bayley. So if you had a bigger division, and God forbid wins and losses actually mattered in this company, you would have some rankings. So when something happens to your top ranked contender in Bayley, you would have the next person to just slide up into that spot. And in this case, they did not have that. A lot of people thought they were going to be calling up somebody from NXT, which is what I thought Shotzi and Knox would be for. And even they have a vignette for Toni Storm, who's going to be coming to the main roster. Most people thought that they were going to replace her or Bayley with a NXT call-up. What to me, that makes no sense either, because WWE painted themselves in a corner here. Now, granted, Bayley got hurt. They didn't see that coming, so I get it. But at the same time, and they have to do something, no doubt about that. But it just shows the wider problem. Again, if you had the contenders list, you would have somebody else to slide in that spot who'd already earned it with wins and all that. But since they don't do that on the main roster, and wins and losses don't matter in WWE, or at least the main roster, you pull Carmella into this match. And Carmella has done nothing. I mean, she's been getting beat. She got beat by Liv Morgan, who comes out and makes that point here in a minute. Which I get that story with Liv Morgan, and they're trying to tell a story with that, but it just makes no sense. And even with Carmella, it makes no sense to give her a title match when she didn't earn it. And if they were to call up somebody from NXT who didn't earn it, like Toni Storm or Shotzi or whoever they wanted to call up, it wouldn't have made any sense then either, because it's like, okay, first night on SmackDown, all right, you're in a title match for no reason. So you've got to book this better. You've got to have a deeper division, and you've got to have women who are getting wins and losses that mean something. At least in this case, if Nikki Ash were on this, brand, even though she's not really won anything legitimately either, it would have made more sense to put her in the women's title match over here, because she's at least been getting some fluke wins is what they are. But at least it would have made some more sense, because Carmella's been getting beat. So there's no sense in doing this, but I understand they were in a tight spot. They had to make a decision, and they were in a no-win scenario based on how they've positioned themselves in the women's division. But so that's kind of what happened here. Carmella came to the ring. Noted that she's the most beautiful woman in WWE. So who cares? Yes, you are gorgeous. You're absolutely beautiful, no doubt about that. But us as fans, we don't care what you look like. We care about what you do inside the ring. So that's my biggest problem here. It's like we're back in the Divas division again. It's all about who looks the best, who's the prettiest, all this nonsense. And it doesn't matter. Liv Morgan interrupted, and she basically says all this. She was furious that Carmella is getting the title shot. Morgan got into Deville's face and accused her of favoritism, which, granted, justified. But then immediately DeVille yelled at Morgan to shut her mouth and listen. She announced that Morgan takes Carmella's place in the ladder match. Morgan hopes Carmella wins the title so she can cash in on her. So yeah, Liv Morgan comes out here and says a legitimate concern that is absolutely warranted and justified. And Sonya Deville basically makes her look, totally weak and stupid for coming out here and, basically pointing that out, and says, if you don't get out of here, I'm going to, take this away from you. And I'm not going to give you your shot. Even though she's the only one on the women's roster on the SmackDown side who's been earning her take here, especially when it comes to the Money in the Bank match, so at least she's getting rewarded for that. But at the same time, maybe she should be the one getting the women's title match at Money in the Bank and not Carmella, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, if Carmella wins the title, which I don't think is going to happen, and I don't think Liv Morgan, maybe Liv Morgan could win it, the briefcase, but I don't think that Carmella is going to be beating Bianca Belair, so I don't think that's going to happen. But Liv Morgan, never say never. That could very well happen based on the story that they're telling. SmackDown Women's Champion Bianca Belair came out as well. Belair doesn't know if Bayley's faking her injury or not, which she's clearly not. It's a legit thing. Belair can wait to settle their problems when she heals. Belair then told Carmella that she'd see her next week. So yeah, it'll be a fun match, I guess, even though it doesn't really make much sense the way they booked it. But it'll be an okay women's match for return to live crowds. In the back, Paul Heyman told Roman Reigns that Edge is going to call him out and that he questioned his manhood. Oh, no. He questioned his manhood. So how you going to respond, Roman? Come on, you going to get punked out like that? All right, so after that, they aired a vignette hyping up Toni Storm's upcoming debut. Again, not saying Toni Storm, at least in this case, Toni Storm wasn't really involved in any major NXT storyline right now, so it makes sense to call her up. This was probably already planned. The Nox and Shotzi, I think Shotzi had already had some main event, tryout matches and things like that, I would assume. I mean, Nox is probably ready for the main roster as well, but it just made no sense because they just brought her back and they were building up storylines, so I don't understand it. But so yeah, we're beginning Toni Storm here before too much longer. So at least they're attempting to make this roster bigger. But the only problem with WWE is, even though that the women's division may grow a little bit with some of these NXT call-ups, it usually seems that, when that happens, some other women kind of take a back seat, and they don't actually do anything with them at the same time. And by doing that, the division doesn't actually get any bigger or any better. It just kind of stays in place. So, you're using the same 6 women over and over again. You've got to use more of these women more often instead of just, using the ones that you want to call up. And then usually the call-ups from NXT get ruined, and then they decide they don't want to do anything with them. So that ends up becoming a problem too. So hopefully they'll use these women to their full potential here and not, totally destroy them like they do a lot of NXT call-ups to the main roster. Then we had a Money in the Bank match qualifier with Seth Rollins versus Cesaro. This was actually a really good match. Of course, both guys are absolutely talented. A nice, solid, long match, too, at 18 minutes. They both worked hard and told a very good story. Kevin Owens was on commentary for this match, kind of scouting his competition for the Money in the Bank. I ain't gonna lie, I thought Kevin Owens on the commentary booth sounded like he just didn't want to be there. He sounded completely like he had no passion. It just sounded like, I don't know if he just wasn't happy that he wasn't in a match. I don't know what it was. He had a great match last week, so there's no no reason for him to be too upset. But it just felt like he just was, yeah, all right, cool, and just making comments like he just didn't really want to be there, didn't want to watch this. I don't know, maybe he's having a bad night, off night. I don't know what it was, but it just felt like there was no heart in his talk here on the commentary booth. So I don't understand what was going on there. So yeah, this was a great match. Rollins jumped back in the ring and tried to win by count out. Cesaro made it back to the ring on a 9.5, 9 3/4 count. Rollins went for a curb stomp, but Cesaro countered with the sharpshooter. Rollins slipped out, but Cesaro hit an uppercut. Cesaro fell to the mat, and Rollins hit the curb stomp for the win. Cesaro got busted up in this match as well, with blood coming out of his head. So, again, very physical, very good match, as you expect from these guys. But, again, it's kind of a match that we've seen over and over and over again at this point. And while I understand they're doing some of these matches to qualify for the Money in the Bank, at some point, we need fresh matchups and we need fresh stories. And I understand some of these were working and you were telling longer stories with these, but once you get to the match and we see them 2 or 3 times, especially in a row each week, it gets old and we don't want to continue to see that. And say what you want about AEW and their large roster, but they have such a good roster that you don't see the same matches week in, week out, and they're constantly new and fresh matchups. They may have an overall story arc that continues, but we don't see the exact same singles match like Nakamura and Corbin, Cesaro and Rollins over and over and over again, so it at least keeps things a little bit fresh. So WWE needs to get better with that going forward, no doubt about it. So Rollins qualifies for the Money in the Bank ladder match. In the back, the Usos approach Edge's locker room. Jimmy went to knock on the door, but Jay told him to wait until Edge leaves. Back from the break, Jimmy got impatient waiting, so they ran into Edge's locker room, but he wasn't there. Jay noted Edge is lucky they didn't find him. So it kind of felt like a bit of a waste of time, to be honest. They were just trying to fill a little time here. But yeah, I mean, Edge wasn't there, smart, so he was out and about. Caleb Braxton interviewed Seth Rollins, and this is where we find Edge here. He celebrated qualifying for the Money in the Bank. Rollins noted he cashed in on Roman Reigns once before, which was a great cash in at WrestleMania 31. That was actually one of the better WrestleManias they've had in recent memory. He still thinks he should be getting the title shot at Money in the Bank. Rollins said he might cash in at Money in the Bank this time, though, and that's when Edge showed up behind him to confront Rollins. So they've kind of been playing on this thing like Rollins wants to get the title match here, and Edge is like, no, this is my shot, my one-on-one match, which, again, to me, Edge shouldn't even be in this position either, because another guy who really didn't earn it, because he got beat clean against Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. There was no doubt about it. Roman and Edge and Daniel Bryan both were laid out convincingly, so there's no sense in Edge getting a one-on-one match. I know he didn't get a one-on-one match that he earned at the Royal Rumble, but he still got an opportunity, and he lost convincingly, no doubt about it, no questions asked. So there's no sense in doing it, but at least without him earning it, and he just kind of came back and attacked Roman and is like, all right, it's my match now, and there we go. Again, you need to earn things with wins, but they don't do that in this company, which is upsetting as a pro wrestling company. I know they don't want to be a pro wrestling company, but that's what they are. So they need to start acting like one. Edge showed up to confront Rollins. Edge noted while Rollins complained, he went and took the title shot. Edge promised to call out Reigns. Rollins was furious as Edge walked away. So clearly, to me, Edge is not winning this title at Money in the Bank. They're obviously setting up Rollins versus Edge, most likely at SummerSlam, which could be a great match and a good feud, something a little bit fresh, so I would like to see that. I don't believe Edge and Rollins have ever wrestled. I don't recall off my top of my head. But, and Roman Reigns is most likely going to be getting John Cena at SummerSlam, so we'll see how that develops. But, yeah, I kind of like this Edge-Rollins stuff. Hopefully it'll be good, and we'll see where they take this for sure. They recapped Otis destroying the Street Profits. In the back, Chad Gable noted it doesn't matter if it's the Street Profits, Edge, or Roman Reigns. Otis added that they will destroy everyone. I like what they're taking the Otis character here for sure. Chad Gable's being a very good coach, talking about he's my number one guy. He reminds me of Jack Nicholson in Batman 1989, talking to his henchman Bob. He's like, you are my number one guy. So I'm liking I kind of like that little gimmick that they've got going on here. Otis... They're making him into Mark Henry, no doubt, the world's strongest man type gimmick here, which I got no problem with. Otis as a dominant force. He's a big guy. It makes a lot of sense, and big guys are things that Vince absolutely likes for sure. The one thing I've noticed though, ever since Otis shaved his beard, he's got this big baby face, and it's like, all right, you're trying to look tough, but you've got this look like you have a 3-year-old face, But anyway, I mean, but I understand too. They had to shave the beard off of him because that was what he was using when he was a baby face, and now that he's a heel, they had to do something differently. I understand it, but to me, it's just he's got this such a smooth baby looking face on him, and it kind of makes him look a little like a good guy, and more than it does a villain. But but I'm liking the changes they've added to Otis here, no doubt. Then we get the final segment of the show. Edge calls out Roman Reigns. Interestingly, there wasn't a main event match outside of Cesaro and Rollins, which was a little before this. But yeah, so that's kind of, I prefer my wrestling shows to end on matches a lot of the times, but this wasn't bad, all things considered. Edge calls out Roman Reigns. Edge mocked Roman and the Usos for reuniting earlier in the night. Edge showed still shots of Roman and Jimmy in the crossface. Roman, Paul Heyman, and the Usos watched backstage. Edge demanded Reigns come to the ring right now. Rollins stood up and told the Usos to stay in the back. He wants to handle this on his own. Reigns gave Heyman the title and told him to stay in the back too. So Roman starts to walk to the ring very slowly. In the back, Jay thinks it's a trap, so the Usos headed to the ring anyway. The Usos made their way to ringside, and Reigns was unhappy that they showed up and said he wants to handle this without them. Reigns slowly entered the ring and faced off with Edge. Edge and Reigns started brawling in the ring. Suddenly, Rey Mysterio's music hit, and Rey and Dominic ran out and attacked the Usos because the Usos and Roman Reigns, basically took out the Mysterios weeks prior, and the Usos recovered and beat down the Mysterios. Edge hit a DDT on Reigns and set up for the spear. Jay grabbed Edge's leg, and Jimmy hit a super kick. The Mysterios jumped back in the ring and hit double 619 on the Usos. Edge then hit the spear on Jay. Edge broke off a piece of a chair and gave Uso the crossface with the bar. Reigns ran away and watched from the ramp. Edge also applied the crossface on Jimmy. Reigns slowly walked away to end the last SmackDown from the Thunderdome. So this is basically one of those things where the Usos were getting destroyed by the Mysterios and Edge in the ring, mostly Edge, with the Mysterios kind of playing defense and keeping the other one from getting involved. And Reigns being a cowardly heel, a dastardly, selfish heel on the ramp, watching his cousins get destroyed and his family, and it's telling the story again that Reigns obviously smart enough not to get involved with this, but at the same time, he doesn't care about his cousins. He cares about him and him alone, and I like that from a heel's side of things. But at some point, the Usos are going to eventually have to turn on Roman. At some point, you would think it may be a long way off, because obviously, if the plans are and the rumors are true to bring in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at some point, possibly at Survivor Series and maybe leading up to a WrestleMania match against Roman Reigns, it makes sense to keep the family together. And I do believe probably what will happen at SummerSlam, the Usos will probably beat the Mysterios for the tag team championships here. That was the plan. It was always the plan, and I think they will continue that plan despite the stuff that happened with Jimmy this week in real life. So that makes a lot of sense to do this, especially if you're going to keep the family. Now, the problem is you're going to get to a point where there is no one who's going to be able to beat Roman Reigns, because he's going to be booked as such a killer and an unstoppable force that the only person who's going to be able to beat him is going to have to be the guy that you want to strap the rocket to become the next John Cena or something to that effect. I don't think John Cena is going to beat him, and nor should he. He will be a part-timer, basically, doing his Hollywood stuff with the Suicide Squad and Fast 9 and all this stuff. So he's got a lot on his plate with the Peacemaker show coming to HBO Max and all this stuff too. And, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is, he's not – I wouldn't think you bring him in to beat him to become the new head of the table, even though basically I like the story idea of The Rock coming in to face the Roman Reigns, because obviously the real head of the table in real life is probably The Rock. So he could come in and play off of that. Like, you think you're the head of the table, you're the tribal chief. I'm the tribal chief. Look at my, track record, look at my career. And Roman would only wish to aspire to be Dwayne Johnson, obviously. So I like the story there. But the question to me is, Rock is not getting any younger, and he hasn't wrestled in many years. And the last time he did wrestle, I think the last 2 times he wrestled, he got injured in both matches. So at what point? I mean, there's ring rust, and then there's not being in ring shape in general, and the toll this takes on your body is not going to be good for Rock if he comes back. So hopefully we'll see what they do. Obviously they got a plan, because they're having a hard time booking main event challengers that would be good for Roman Reigns. And if the rumors are true that Big E, if he does win the Money in the Bank, he could actually go over to Raw and challenge Bobby Lashley, which I believe he even mentioned on commentary No, that might have been Kevin Owens. But anyway, with Bobby Lashley, beating up the New Day over there with Xavier Woods, will probably get destroyed again next week on Monday Night Raw. And, of course, Kofi Kingston will probably lose to Bobby Lashley at Money in the Bank. It makes all the sense in the world if Big E were to win the Money in the Bank ladder match that he would challenge Bobby Lashley for the title if they don't get Brock Lesnar for SummerSlam. So that makes a lot of sense. So if that's the case, there's really not a whole lot of challengers outside of Edge, John Cena, and The Rock for Roman to actually make it believable that he would actually get beat here, because no one else is going to beat Roman Reigns at this point. They've got to build up some sort of a contender, which I would think would be Big E, but I don't know if they're going to pull that trigger against Roman Reigns. So we'll see what they do. But yeah, I thought this SmackDown was a much better show than what they've had in recent months. Especially all things considered, I thought they handled the Bayley stuff and the Jimmy Uso stuff storyline-wise okay, outside of Carmella not actually earning anything when it comes to a women's championship match. But no matter what they did, whether it was going to be NXT call-up, Carmella, or whoever, none of it was going to make any sense. So they were kind of put in a corner, and they made the best decision I think that they decided that they could make. So with that being said, the real question here is, guys, what do you guys think of WWE Smackdown for July 9th, 2021? Please comment down below. Let me know. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content right here on this channel. And until my next video, guys, take care.